Alison, the first question I've got for you is around rides and events. Your two major events that you have annually are the Great Vic Bike Ride and also Around the Bay. Can you tell us about the latest developments with those events?
Yes, I'd love to. It's a big year this year, particularly for the Great Victorian Bike Ride. Last year we celebrated our 40th year.
But let's start with e-bikes. What are the latest developments there?
Particularly females riding e-bikes, and then also, it increases your longevity. Look at me, I'm injured at the minute. I otherwise would not be on a bike, but I'm riding the e-bike around because it just enables me to, get through that day. So there's three things for it to be an e-bike.
Any comments around that space that can be good tips for all those bike riders that are out there? Alison McCormack, our guest today, is the CEO of Bicycle Network, and she's here this morning to help us unpack the latest developments of Australia's biggest bike riding organisation, supported by nearly 50,000 members nationwide. I'm Ian Bunston. Welcome to Monday Matters. Alison, it's lovely to have you back again.
Thanks so much for having me.
Alison, the first question I've got for you is around rides and events. Your two major events that you have annually are the Great Vic Bike Ride and also Around the Bay. Can you tell us about the latest developments with those events?
Yes, I'd love to. In fact, it's a big year this year, particularly for the Great Victorian Bike Ride. Last year we celebrated our 40th year of the event, and over time, I think it's fair to say most event companies have really struggled with the costs of events and just the event over time becoming different, and making it different and reinventing it. So last year we really focused on what does the next iteration of the Great Vic Bike Ride look like? And I'm not sure if anyone online did the Great Vic last year, but we went to the northeast of Victoria to get away from the rain. And what happened? The farmers were happy because it poured. But during that time, we really got to speak to everybody who's been on the event for so many years to say, if we change the event a little, what would you like it to look like? And this year we've launched a whole new kind of format for the Great Victorian Bike Ride. It was previously over 9 days, and we pretty much had to pack up each day, go to sleep, pack up your tent in the morning, do your ride, get to your new town and repeat. And a lot of the feedback was around, you know what, we'd actually like to stay in a town a little bit longer and potentially shorten the ride. So we've taken on everybody's feedback. Anyone who fed back to us, the team got together, pulled it all together, and we are now launching the 41st and the reinvented Great Victorian Bike Ride. The great news is we're going to the Great Ocean Road, which is always super exciting because we close the Great Ocean Road for that leg and you get to enjoy the Great Ocean Road. So it's pretty special. We'll be starting in Mortlake. So we're heading that way, and then we'll move across to Koroit, and we'll be staying for 2 nights in Koroit. So this is this new format that we actually get to park ourselves in the town. It also opens it up for a lot of different people. So we'll travel from Mortlake to Koroit, then the next day do a loop ride around the beautiful area. So people can choose really what they want to do, and that'll be going into Port Fairy and all these beautiful places. And we'll spend 2 nights there, and then we'll be heading down to Port Campbell and do the same again. So 2 nights in Port Campbell with a beautiful loop ride on the day in Port Campbell before finishing across at Camperdown. So we're really excited about the new format. Everyone's really been quite receptive about it, and that we're going to really change up what we're doing based on everyone's feedback as well.
And Around the Bay, that's one I have done the Great Vic twice, but not round the Bay, only part of it. Are there developments in that area?
Yeah, and again, with our events, it's about reinventing ourselves, making sure that events are sustainable as well, but making sure that there's a ride for everybody. Like, that's what Bicycle Network, or Bicycle Victoria, as most people know it, is about. It's about getting more people to ride bikes for their health. So we need that entry point. We want people to start their bike riding journey, whatever that is, on one of our events as well, and provide that opportunity. So Around the Bay is like literally the feedback. It's the ride that stops Melbourne. You know, this is the tagline for it. We have a lap the track. So this is an entry level ride. You can go anywhere from 6 kilometers to 20 kilometers on that. So it laps the Grand Prix circuit, if you like. So it's called lap the track. Then we've got a 50 kilometer level. Then we have our 100 kilometer, and we've got our, of course, the around the bay. We've also got a Geelong start because we want to make sure that we try and incorporate everyone around the bay as well. So there's a lot of different options that you can ride, and whoever you are, you can just join in at that level point. And also with e-bikes, we really recommend the 50K as a really great point for an e-bike as well.
Wonderful. That gives many people the opportunity to be involved, regardless of your ability. Alison, I'd like to chat about Bicycle Network's advocacy in two areas. One is e-bikes, and the other is the latest bike track to have been opened, say, in the Melbourne metro or regional area, wherever that may be. But let's start with e-bikes. What are the latest developments there?
Look, with e-bikes, we are really focused on e-bikes, and it's definitely something that Bicycle Network really promote. It's a game changer for getting more people to ride bikes. E-bikes really lower the barrier, we find, of that initial getting on the bike. People are hesitant, they're a bit scared. They're like, oh, will I get up that hill? I'm a bit scared to get on a bike. And we find that e-bikes is just that beautiful piece of equipment that says, look, I'll give it a try. Particularly females. There's a huge uptake of females riding e-bikes. And then also, you know, it increases your longevity. Look at me, I'm injured at the minute. I otherwise would not be on a bike, but I'm riding the e-bike around because it just enables me to, you know, get through that day. So it's amazing. We have launched a campaign on e-bikes, Australia's e-bike moment. And this is about, you know, at a federal level, we're campaigning to say, listen, make e-bikes more accessible. We really would love subsidies for e-bikes, and they can come in different forms from, you know, FBT tax cuts. There's an electric vehicle scheme in Australia, fantastic. Why aren't e-bikes on that EV scheme? They are transport, they get you from A to B. They need to be on that scheme. So that's absolutely a federal level. At the state level, we really wanted to work with the ministers to say, listen, yep, can we incentivize e-bikes? Are there programs where we can get more people trialing e-bikes? Because I think that's one thing that people are probably scared of. So what kind of e-bike do I get? You know, how far do they go? Like, is it like riding a motorbike? What is an e-bike? And that's really important as well, because an e-bike is a pedal assist bike. So no throttle. So there's three things for it to be an e-bike. Pedal assist, no throttles. They're illegal. As soon as you get them on the roads, they're illegal. 25 kilometers is the cutout point where the pedal assist stops assisting you. So if you're on an e-bike and you've tried one at 25 Ks, you'll get the assistance. Then once you get up to that speed, it cuts out. So that's the second thing. The third thing is the power of the e-bike. So it's 250 watts everywhere in Australia, except for New South Wales, where they increased it to 500 watts because they believe they've got bigger hills. So in New South Wales, there's a higher thing. So you need those three things to have an e-bike. And I think sometimes that's a common question I get, particularly with those bikes that are throttle and they're not e-bikes. So we are advocating for e-bikes. Then at the local council level, you know, really, how can we provide access? So we had an e-bike expo in Marybeck at the Brunswick Velodrome last year, and we're looking to do more of those. We had, I think it was 13 different brands just came down, and that was just to come and try. So we had any e-bike from an entry-level price point right through to the Brompton City, which was very posh and wonderful. But people could look, they could feel it, they could try it in a in a non-scary environment, and it was a huge success. So we are all about e-bikes.
Alison, as a bike rider, it's always exciting when you hear about a new bike track that's just been opened or perhaps about to open. Is there any latest one that you can tell us about that's happening in Metro Melbourne or Victoria?
Look, this year, we're really excited that all of the Westgate Tunnel related bike infrastructure is being rolled out. Now, this has been a huge project. It's something that Bicycle Network certainly has been a part of for the last decade. It's so these infrastructure projects take time, and in the West, the Westgate Tunnel project is coming alive. But a part of that is 14.1 kilometres of new bike infrastructure that has been supported by that project, and it's an amazing journey that we've been on, and the local community have 100% advocated for great bike infrastructure. But if you've seen it this year, the Veloway will be open, which is a piece of infrastructure that will be hanging off the actual new freeway infrastructure. It's a 4 metre wide green, it's very green, bike way that will run from Footscray right through to the Docklands. So it's 2.4 kilometres. You will not be going along what is Footscray Road, which is the docks, with heavy vehicle traffic, with the trucks. We have seen fatalities down there tragically. I think Angus Collins was quite a public fatality there, where a young budding cyclist lost his life with a truck. And so this piece of infrastructure is so welcomed. But also a part of that is that's 2.4 Ks. There's a lot of bridges that have been delivered. We've just had the serpent-looking bridge delivered over Footscray Road last week, which connects the Capital City Trail and Moonee Ponds, and it will link into the Veloway. But these are just such important pieces of infrastructure that are really expensive. And while it is a freeway project, we are able to get good infrastructure off the back of it. And that's something that we need to make sure that every time, there's road improvements, that active travel gets its percentage piece of the share as well, because it will be a game changer and it will be absolutely incredible. So we're thrilled about that.
Alison, you can't have a conversation. You've already just touched on it a tiny bit, a conversation about bike riding without touching on safety. Any comments around that space that can be good tips for all those bike riders that are out there?
About safety, particularly a friend coming in touring from Italy. I'm always thinking, oh my goodness, what are good safety tips? I mean, thinking definitely at the minute in Australia, clearly we're coming into winter, and don't get caught out without your lights, particularly in the evenings, and make sure you've got a good strong light as well. I mean, I think in terms of that, I myself have sometimes get caught out once in a while. I work a bit late or something. So make sure that you've got good lights, particularly in these coming into winter months. Safety, we ask our members every year where they feel safe, where they don't feel safe. And we also look at the data. One thing we know is that most accidents, crashes happen at intersections. So I think in terms of just being aware and being quite cautious. When you are coming to intersections, often that's where the infrastructure runs out. You'll have a bike path and it'll go nowhere, and you just need to be really super vigilant when it comes to intersections. It's definitely something that we are looking at and advocating for, because we know that most crashes or near misses happen at those intersections. Thirdly, just make sure when you're riding that you're actually quite predictable. I think another key area of safety is, you might be having parked cars on a street, and sometimes you feel like, oh, it might be nice just to veer in here to let the vehicles go past. But when you're doing that, they don't necessarily expect you to veer back out onto the road. So just be really predictable. Make sure that when you're riding, particularly in a road or a road with heavy traffic, just to make sure that your intent and your line is quite straight, because it's really an important piece of it to make sure that vehicles know where you're going. And for vehicle drivers, make sure that you are also very aware of bike riders out there. Make sure that you pass them. Just slow down. A couple of seconds is not going to kill your day. In fact, you probably won't lose time once you catch up to the second line. So slow down, make sure you give those bike riders plenty of space. And I think because this is a community group, one thing I love doing, I do a lot of bunch rides or group rides. We love exploring new places. But when we do, we make sure we've got a really good route before we go, and that we have a planned person, or sometimes, if we meet somebody from a new place, look out, we'll generally go, hey, listen, you want to take us on a bike ride? And I think just having that preparation when you're in a group ride and knowing where you're going, particularly if you are new to the area, it's really important just to map out your rides.
Now, Alison, you've mentioned the word community. And when I think about bike riding, and I'm a real keen bike rider, as I know you are, of course, but I think of all the community connections that take place on all of the events that you organise every year. But I also think of those bike riding groups. Often the most important part of that ride is that coffee shop destination and all the conversations that go on. Tell us about the impact of community with regard to bike riding.
Look, I think I think I'm speaking to the converted here, but and that's one thing coming into this role, being an avid bike rider. I'm now 2 years in. We're connecting with community again. The bicycle user groups in all of the different areas are so important. The clubs, because that's what it's about. It's fun and it's on two wheels. And I think we all know that bike riding gives you so much more than just going from A to B or getting out there and having physical activity, which is so important. But it's so good for your mental health and well-being. And I mean, I personally have met so many people on the bike. My best friends are people who ride bikes. I've met friends through social media who have become really fantastic friends. And I've even met my husband through the bicycle. So we met bike riding, and hey presto, 13 years later, we're married. There you go. So the bike is much more than just two wheels. It's a lot of fun, and it's memories for life as well.
So dare I say there's a romantic side to bike riding, hey?
Oh, absolutely. The Great Vic is a great place too for any singles. I think there's been many relationships sparked up on the Great Victorian Bike Ride as well.
Well, Alison McCormack, the CEO of Bicycle Network Victoria, I'm going to use that whole expression there, Bicycle Network. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you as our guest today. I know there's so many keen bike riders out there, and just to hear firsthand from you about the most recent developments, but also about the joys and the benefits and the community connections that you can certainly gain from being part of the bike riding community. Thank you for being our guest here at Monday Matters today.
Well, thank you for having me.